Some mental illnesses are impossible to ignore. Others sneak in so quietly you don't notice them until they've rewritten who you are. Watch closely. You'll see yourself in at least one of them. Let's start with the most misunderstood condition on Earth: depression. Most people think this is just extreme sadness, but it's not. Sadness is a natural reaction to a bad day. Depression, on the other hand, is a biological glitch that deletes your ability to care about a good day. Neuroscientifically, the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for memory and emotion, actually begins to shrink. This creates a state called anhedonia. You could win the lottery tomorrow, and your brain would process that life-changing news with the same emotional enthusiasm as staring at a blank drywall. It's not that you won't get out of bed, it's that you can't. It feels like gravity has tripled, trapping you in a suit of lead armor. Every basic task, showering, eating, replying to a text, requires a surge of energy that your body simply refuses to generate. But the most dangerous trick depression plays is on your memory. It rewrites your autobiography, convincing you that this numbness isn't a temporary illness, but your permanent reality. It tells you that hope was the lie and the darkness is the only thing that was ever real. If depression is the brain's way of freezing to survive pain, anxiety is the brain's way of overheating to survive a threat. If fear is a survival instinct, generalized anxiety disorder is that instinct malfunctioning on a catastrophic scale. Imagine a smoke detector that doesn't just go off when there's a fire. It screams at full volume just because you made toast. That is your reality. Your amygdala, the brain's ancient threat detection center, gets jammed in the on position. It floods your bloodstream with high-octane cortisol, preparing you to fight a tiger or run from an avalanche. The problem? You're just sitting in a dentist's waiting room. This manifests as the spiral. A normal brain sees an unread email and thinks, "I'll check that later." An anxious brain sees the same email and instantly predicts you're being fired, which means you'll lose your house, which ends with you dying alone under a bridge. It sounds irrational to an outsider, but to you, that logic feels bulletproof. Sometimes, the slow burn of anxiety detonates into an explosion. This is panic disorder. It is essentially biological terrorism committed by your own nervous system. While anxiety is a simmer, a panic attack is an immediate, catastrophic system failure where your brain pulls the emergency brake at 70 miles per hour. Without any warning, your amygdala dumps a lethal dose of adrenaline into your blood. Your vision tunnels. Your chest crushes inward. You aren't just scared that you might die, your body is providing convincing physical evidence that you are dying right now. But the true cruelty isn't the attack itself, it's the fear of the fear. You stop going to grocery stores, not because you're afraid of groceries, but because you're afraid of having an attack near the produce section. Your world shrinks. You aren't hiding from the world. You are hiding from the volatile, traitorous alarm system living inside your own skin. But what happens when the problem isn't fear, but regulation? When the part of your brain that decides what to focus on simply just leaves the building? ADHD, quite possibly the most misleadingly named condition in the medical world. It is not a deficit of attention, it is a chaotic abundance of it, with absolutely no steering wheel. Think of your brain like a high-performance computer. For a neurotypical person, the operating system works fine. For someone with ADHD, the RAM is functioning perfectly, but the file manager is missing. This creates a state called executive dysfunction. You know exactly what you need to do, but the bridge between knowing and doing has collapsed. You end up paralyzed on your couch, screaming internally at your own limbs to just stand up and wash the dishes, but you remain frozen. It isn't laziness, it is physically painful boredom. Then there is the paradox. Because your brain is chronically starved of dopamine, when it finally finds a source, like a video game or a passion project, it latches on with terrifying intensity. You don't just focus, you vanish from the timeline. You forget to eat, you forget to pee, you forget you exist. You are driving a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes, constantly wondering why you can't just stop at the stop signs like everyone else. If ADHD is a brain that can't filter out the world, OCD is a brain that tries to control it through terror. First, let's kill the stereotype. Cleaning your room because you like it tidy is a personality trait. OCD is a mental prison built on a single, agonizing question. What if? It starts with the intrusive thought. Your brain hallucinates a threat. Maybe it's a vivid image of you hurting a loved one, or a conviction that your house is currently burning down. A healthy brain filters this out as noise. An OCD brain flags it as a catastrophic emergency. To stop the panic, you are forced to perform a ritual. You check the lock, you wash your hands, you count to 10. This creates a phenomenon psychologists call magical thinking. Intellectually, you know that tapping a doorframe 3 times has absolutely no connection to your family's safety. You know it makes no sense. But the disorder overrides your logic with a primitive, overwhelming terror. It holds your peace of mind hostage, demanding you pay the ransom over and over again. The tragedy isn't that you think the ritual works, it's that you can't survive the anxiety of not doing it. If OCD is the fear of what might happen, social anxiety is the fear of being seen. There is a massive difference between being shy and having social anxiety. Shyness is a personality trait. Social anxiety is a phobia. It transforms a casual conversation into a high-stakes press conference, where you are the only one without a script. When you walk into a room, your brain doesn't see friends or colleagues. It sees judges. You become hyper-aware of your own existence. You aren't actually listening to the other person because you are too busy monitoring your own performance. But the real torture happens after you leave. This is the social autopsy. While driving home, your brain forces you to watch a high-definition highlight reel of every stutter, every awkward pause, and every joke that didn't land. You replay a 10-second interaction for 5 hours, convinced that everyone else is obsessing over your mistake. The truth is, nobody noticed. But your brain won't let you believe that. While social anxiety traps you in the eyes of others, PTSD traps you in the past. PTSD is essentially a time travel disorder. To a healthy brain, a bad memory is like looking at an old photograph. You might feel sad, but you know it's in the past. PTSD rips that photograph up and throws you back into the scene. It occurs when the brain fails to put a timestamp on a traumatic event. Because the horror, whether it was a battlefield, an assault, or a crash, was so overwhelming, the brain never processed it into long-term storage. It stays in your active RAM. This means a trigger isn't just a reminder. It's a teleportation device. A specific smell or a loud noise doesn't make you think about the event. It makes your body physically relive it. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles lock, and you dissociate. You are walking through a safe grocery store, but your nervous system is convinced you are currently about to die. You end up living life in a state of permanent hypervigilance. While PTSD locks you in the past, bipolar disorder throws you between two violent futures. It is often minimized as just mood swings, but that is like calling a hurricane a breeze. This is a violent chemical oscillation between two extremes, God mode and the void. It begins with mania. To the person experiencing it, mania feels less like an illness and more like a cure. You don't just feel good, you feel limitless. You sleep for 2 hours but wake up with more energy than you've had in years. Colors are sharper. You are charming, brilliant, and invincible. But this biological high comes with a terrible price tag. You aren't actually running on infinite energy. You are burning your life's furniture to keep the fire going. You destroy bank accounts and ruin relationships, all while convinced you are doing the right thing. And then the bill comes due. You crash into a depression that is mathematically equal to the height of your mania. It is a crushing, colorless silence. The tragedy of bipolar isn't just the sadness, it's the whiplash. You are forced to mourn the loss of your own potential every time the mania fades, never knowing which version of you will wake up tomorrow. If bipolar is a chaotic loss of control, eating disorders are a desperate, lethal attempt to seize it. Let's be very clear. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. To treat this as a diet gone wrong is to fundamentally misunderstand the enemy. This is not about vanity, it is about safety. When the world feels chaotic, the disorder offers you a deal. Control the numbers and you control your life. For anorexia, your brain transforms into a ruthless calculator. You don't see food, you see data points to be minimized. Hunger stops feeling like pain and starts feeling like success. You look in the mirror and experience body dysmorphia, a literal hallucination where your brain overlays a distorted, larger image onto your reflection. Bulimia operates on a different cycle of shame. It is a desperate attempt to hit undo on your own actions, trapping you in a loop of binging and purging that wrecks your internal organs. The terrifying part is that the disorder speaks in your own voice. It disguises self-destruction as willpower. It convinces you that fading away is the only way to be safe. You aren't starving your body to look good, you are starving it to numb the noise in your head. Borderline personality disorder is about the terror of losing the other. Psychologists often describe BPD as being an emotional burn victim. Imagine having no skin to protect your nerves. Even a gentle breeze feels like agony. That is how a BPD brain processes emotion. The core of this disorder is a terrifying instability in how you see yourself and others. This manifests as splitting. You don't see shades of gray, people are either angels or monsters. You might meet someone and instantly idealize them as your favorite person, the sun your entire universe orbits around. But if that person doesn't text back fast enough, the switch flips. In a split second, you are convinced they hate you, and you must destroy the relationship before they can abandon you. This isn't drama. It is a frantic, primal defense mechanism against abandonment. You are flailing in deep water, grabbing onto anything to stay afloat. But what happens when the fragmentation isn't just emotional, but sensory? Schizophrenia is the most stigmatized condition in existence, mostly because Hollywood has lied to you about what it is. It is not a split personality, and it is rarely violent. It is a fragmentation of reality itself. Think of your brain as a filter. Right now, it is ignoring the hum of the fridge and the sensation of your shirt against your skin so you can focus on this video. In a schizophrenic brain, that filter dissolves. Every sensory input floods in with maximum significance. To make sense of this chaotic noise, the brain begins to invent patterns that aren't there. You physically hear a command as clearly as if I were standing next to you. You believe that a red car passing by is a coded message from the government, but the negative symptoms are the silent tragedy. While the disorder adds hallucinations, it subtracts your humanity. It flattens your voice and steals your motivation. You aren't crazy, you are terrified. You are trapped in a waking nightmare where the one thing you rely on to navigate the world, your own mind, has become an unreliable narrator. Finally, we need to talk about the condition Hollywood has abused the most: dissociative identity disorder. Forget what you saw in movies like Split. This isn't a monster hiding in the dark. It is a child's mind shattering to survive the unsurvivable. DID forms when a child experiences trauma so repetitive and horrific before the age of 7 that their personality never fuses into a single I. Instead, it remains in fragments. Think of it like a broken mirror. Each shard is a separate part of the whole, called an alter. These aren't imaginary friends, they are specialized programs. One alter might hold the memories of the abuse so the others don't have to know it happened. Another might be a protector who handles anger. The daily reality isn't a superpower, it is chaotic amnesia. You wake up on a bus with no idea where you are going. You find clothes in your closet you don't remember buying. You are living in a body that feels like a timeshare property where you don't always hold the keys. The disorder didn't break them, it is the only reason they survived. And that is the truth about everything we have discussed today. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. You are not broken. You are adapted. Depression was your brain's way of numbing the pain when it became too much to bear. Anxiety was your brain's attempt to predict the future so you wouldn't be hurt again. ADHD was a hunter's mind trapped in a farmer's world. DID was a fortress built to protect a child. Every disorder you've heard about tonight is a survival strategy that outlived its battlefield. The suffering doesn't come from the defect. It comes from using a map for a world that no longer exists. You don't need to be fixed because you were never broken. You just need to learn how to lay down your armor. You survived the war. Now it's time to survive the peace.